Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Education in Focus, powered by Chalkboard News. I'm Dan McCaleb, Vice President of News and Content at the Franklin News Foundation, which publishes chalkboardnews.com. Chalkboard is a news website dedicated to issues related to K-12 education across the country. Joining me again today is Brendan Clary, Chalkboard's K-12 editor. How are you, Brendan?
I'm doing well, Darren. How about yourself?
I am doing well. Thank you, Brendan. We are recording this on Friday, September 15th. Brendan, an ongoing story we've covered at Chalkboard News has to do with books that are in student libraries, school libraries, elementary school, middle school libraries, and whether or not they're appropriate for students of that age. Interestingly, this week, Illinois Secretary of State Alexi Giannoulias appeared before Congress to discuss that issue, including a new state law that's now in effect that would prevent state tax dollars from going to public libraries, including school libraries, would prevent state tax dollars from going to these libraries that remove certain books from the shelves. Democrats say, and Alexi Giannoulias is a Democrat, elected statewide official in the state of Illinois, and he's the one that introduced this legislation or promoted this legislation that is now law. He appeared before a congressional hearing this week, and Democrats like him say that restricting these books is a form of book banning. The other side, many Republicans, many parents say it's not really book banning. The books are still available publicly. It's about age appropriateness. Should first graders, for example, have books that get sexually explicit? Anyway, he testified before Congress about it. Franklin News Foundation covered it for its various websites, including Chalkboard News. Tell us a little about the hearing.
Yeah, it's sort of a continuation of this bigger, discussion, I think, over what is a book ban and what should students have access to, right? And this sort of, nationalizes and sort of crystallizes this issue. As you mentioned, there's sort of this divide of Democrats saying this is vital to our democracy, that students have what they want to be able to read, that they have, an opportunity to read books that reflect, their maybe diverse sexuality. And so that's an argument that you hear, is that, students should be able to read books that have characters that look like them. And if you remove these kinds of books from libraries, or you restrict their access, then to students who are, identify as transgender or have like an alternate sort of identity and regarding their, their gender, there's some things like that, then you are limiting what they have access to, and so you're sort of telling them that they're not on the same level as their peers who can read books that have characters that sort of reflect their identity, that sort of thing. So there is sort of that argument there that there's a need to protect those kinds of students, and that's something that you see a lot in a lot of school board debates. So this is sort of taking the local school board debates over different books and the questions about this, and sort of nationalizing it, making it on the larger scale, putting it into the halls of Congress, the debate of what are we talking about here, or like what are we considering to be a book ban, right? And so that's as you mentioned too, there's a lot of I've talked to Moms for Liberty, I've talked to some parents organizations, and they bristle, as you mentioned, at calling these book bans. These are, in their mind, they're saying we're just removing inappropriate content, and it's not like you can't go and purchase that at your local Barnes and Noble. It's not like you can't go purchase this on Amazon. We just don't want it where our students or other students can read it in the public library, the school library. And so that's sort of the tension, right? Is we have sort of two different views on books, it seems like, in this country. And that came to a head this week in the congressional thing. I mean, Mike Lee from Utah, he said, this is not a ban. This is about schools deciding what's appropriate for school children, and sexually explicit and obscene pornographic material is not appropriate. And so that's sort of the line that Republicans and some of these other advocacy organizations have taken. And on the other side, there's Democrats will say this is to protect students, or to give them the option to read whatever they want. And it's sort of a problem when some parents are saying this is what you can and can't read, and so they see that as censorial and limiting students. So that's sort of the divide from what I can tell, and it's been something that's going been going on in a lot of, school board meetings around the country, but now it's sort of nationalized, right? And there's, another aspect of that is, we had some Republicans reading passages from books, that have profane language, that have some maybe explicit content. And so that's something that we've seen around the country as well, of parents reading to school board members, like, do you want this in your school? And then they start discussing some, either maybe sexually graphic material or things of that nature. Sometimes it's very profane. And then I think that, that is sort of the question of, like, is this what we want students to have, or should we be limiting that? And there are, I guess the broader question is, should there be guide rails in what students can access in a school? Or is it, if high school, anything goes, but middle school, we have to have sort of these guide rails in place. And that's something that, there's a lot of different opinions out there, and school districts have taken different tacks. But, it is, again, coming to a head nationally, and this is a much broader conversation.
Brendan, in the limited time we have left, I think it was U.S. Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana who read some of those passages from some of these books, these controversial books that have been debated at school board meetings across the country. And I listened to the hearing, and the language that he used from these books was extremely graphic. I'm a parent now of college-age students, but I remember when they were in elementary school, there were no discussions or issues about this because these books just weren't allowed in schools 15, 18 years ago. Now they're more prevalent in schools. Brendan, you're a parent of 2 preschool-aged children. They'll be going to school sooner rather than later. Let me warn you, they go quick, so enjoy it when you can, but they will be in elementary school here. I mean, as a parent, speaking to you as a parent, not as a journalist, not as the editor of chalkboardnews.com, I mean, what would you think if those books were in front of your kindergartner? Not a kindergartner yet, but soon enough, first grader, second grader. I mean, your personal opinion.
Yeah, I think that, some of this starts at home, right, of having discussions with your kids of, okay, what kinds of books should you check out, and being involved in their education. So for me personally, be like, okay, we go to the library, we always, get some books. And some books even now we go to the public library, and our children are able to kind of grab the books that they want, and then we'll take them home and then sort of get through them. And, if there's a book in there that, does not look like the kind of thing that we're going to read, then we'll put it up and take it back to the library. And so I feel like there is sort of these conversations that you have to have beforehand. But, there are some of these things that are very concerning, especially, if you're talking about like younger access, and that, there are some of these, in some of these books that are in high schools, they say, not for children. They say like they'll have like a parental sort of advisory, or that the publisher recommends that they're for 18 or older. And so it's, at the very top end of high school or outside of high school, like college aged, and like, for adults essentially. And I think that's, there's sort of also to a kinds of, for kids, it's usually different kinds of books that also they have sort of messages, and I think that that can go. There's been books that have been written, like Heroes of Liberty, that they've faced some shadow banning from Facebook and that kind of thing. So there's different there's different ideas in books for young kids even that I'd want to talk with my kids about and be protective about, and I think that that's sort of part of the controversial thing is that if you have teachers saying that, like, kids should be able to read whatever they want, and then you have parents saying, hey, I'd like to be able to have some say or some control, then that does sometimes, I think, rub people the wrong way of you saying, well, like, why can't you just stay away from what my kid is going to read? And so that sort of seems to be one of the bigger issues is who's able to say what kids can and can't read. Right.
Well, Brendan, I appreciate you sharing your insights, including your personal insights into this story. Which it is, nothing is settled here. This is a debate that's going to continue around the country, but we are out of time. Listeners can keep up with this story and all stories related to K through 12 education at chalkboardnews.com. For Brendan Clary, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.